We continue on our relentless pursuit to get our hands on Shadows of the Galaxy. Welcome to the podcast where we discuss how to outmaneuver your opponents. I'm Faith and I'm here with Jrod, while his dudeness is away, excited from his pre-release. While you're listening to us at your normal time, we are recording today at an unusual time, very early in the morning on Saturday, so don't be alarmed by our snoring you may hear throughout the episode. One thing that is not boring, however, is a new set, which means new cards. So, Jrod, how did you do at your event so far?
Well, I ended up not going yesterday to my pre-release that I was supposed to. I had something come up, so I decided I couldn't make it. I am heading to one today and one tomorrow, so we'll see what happens. I'm super excited to get my hands and start playing with the set. Being able to open some packs are awesome. Super excited for the paper packs again. I hope they continue that for all the sets because I'm a giant fan of the paper packs. You know, hoping to open up some Poe Damerons. That's definitely the key card I'm looking to open for right now. Obviously, any showcases would be sweet as well, especially if I get Hunter. I'm a big clone era guy, so I want to collect all the clone leaders and showcase if possible. But I want to pull them, so I'm not sure how I'm gonna go about that though. I don't know if I don't want to trade or buy them. I want to just like pull them. So I guess I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Get good, Scrub? Question mark?
Yeah, I mean I have awful pack luck, so I'm not expecting to actually pull any showcase whatsoever. But I did hear that no one pulled a showcase at the event that I would have gone to last night, so positives there. However, someone did pull in 5 packs a Poe and a foil Poe. So that's a pretty good day for that person.
Yeah, that's kind of gross. That's awesome. Is Poe, in your opinion, the best card in the set?
He's definitely up there. I don't think we've really locked in the best card. Like, I think he's like pretty good. I think Snoke also has a good chance because like I don't think people fully appreciate the -2/-2 on Snoke ability. Like he can really end the game pretty quickly, and he's very hard to get rid of. So I think that he could also be pretty powerful. I also like the Crate Dragon. I think that card is also very powerful. So there's a lot of good cards, and you have Kylo's ship that like I don't think it's necessarily a like super strong card, but it's just a card that is gonna just go right into every red villain deck, just because of its stats, even if it doesn't have synergy with the deck that you're trying to build. So that card will be decently expensive, just because it can go into any red villainy deck.
Yeah, that's fair. Just kind of, looking at, it's still early. So, by the way, if anyone's looking at like buying cards, now is not the time usually. When a set releases, the prices are at their peak. They will go down almost always. It is a tough thing, though. Just we're going to talk about, there doesn't look like there's a ton of product, maybe as much as people want. And so that will, in the supply-demand ratio, that will have an effect on prices. But we're looking at the top prices. You're looking at like Darksaber, Crate Dragon, from what we're seeing so far. Poe is next. So Kylo's after that. Kylo's ship. Mandalorian's holding kind of a high price, which I'm surprised by.
Yeah, I didn't expect him. It might just be just because of the name. But like, for example, like the Mandalorian hyperspace is like pre-selling for like 150 or something like that. And like Snoke is pre-selling for 50 hyperspace. And to me, that's like crazy. I don't think Mando's bad, but I don't think he's that good. Like, I think he's fine. But I think like Snoke is going to be like a game ender.
Yeah. And it's one of those stuff that's when we're comparing these prices, we can only go off what there is on the pre-sale. We won't know the future because in 2 months or in 2 weeks, in 2 days, these prices are going to be different. So we won't know until kind of things settle down. I will say I did play in my pre-release yesterday. Someone in my pod pulled a hyperspace DJ, which I thought was pretty exciting. However, I think I probably got one of the best pulls, and I was kind of spoiled. I got myself a hyper foil. That is Hoyle Maul. Don't call him Darth. And you know what he was going after? He wanted that Darksaber, and so I also brought him a Darksaber along with him too. So that was some pretty spicy pool. I was kind of bad at the game, and I went like, and I'm not saying that I didn't do well. I was 3-1. The opponent I lost to did play really well, so I don't want to like diminish how well he played. I think I could have played better in the game that I lost, and so overall, I mean, I'm still happy. Still very good polls. Very excited about that. The mall looks very nice.
Yeah, I saw a picture of it, and I am definitely jealous. Although I will say it's a foil, so obviously me with the non-foil guy, but that card just looks amazing in hyperspace foil. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big fan of that, and I hope that I get to pull something as sweet as that.
Yeah. Pro tip: a 7/6 ambush overwhelm for 7 is pretty good.
Good. Okay, I wasn't sure if that was good, but thank you for filling me in if that was good. It sounded like it would probably be okay. So just to get the confirmation that it is good, it just it warms my heart.
Yeah, I played a green Bosky boy, and I did play 2 out of aspect cards. I played Relentless Pursuit, which is the name of this episode, which is a yellow event which lets you capture a unit that costs equal to or less than another unit. You can capture a unit that's equal or less to the unit that you're going to use to capture that unit. And if it's a bounty hunter, you can give it a shield. And so it did cost me 5, but the plan is when you deploy Bosk to use that and capture something and put a shield on Bosk. So that was kind of the game plan with that idea. I also had a wanted just so I could have another bounty to ping their units with.
Who did you play as a leader? I'm sorry.
Green Bosk. I played, yeah.
Bosk, okay. And how was Bosk for you? Because I feel like Bosk can be a little bit of a bait sometimes in this, because like sometimes you don't have enough bounties to like really make him good. If that makes sense.
Yeah, so I had 3 bounties. I had a Relentless. I had Rich Reward, which is the aspectless one to give +1/+1 counters. I had the ramp one, and I had this wanted. So I had the 3 bounties, and I also had a stolen land speeder, which for those that don't know is a 1-cost red card unit, which when you play it from your hand, it goes into the field on your opponent's side, and it has bounties. So you're able to give one of your opponents a unit that has bounty, and then when you defeat it, it goes on your side.
Gotcha.
Actually, the game I lost was the game that I played that on turn 1, gave my opponent the land speeder, and he was playing a book, and I was able to take it out in 2 turns. The turn I played it, I was able to ping it right away, and then the next turn I was able to take it out. But his field was just too big, and I just didn't do enough to stop him. So he was just overwhelming.
Well, that's all right. You can't win them all.
You could try though.
Absolutely can try. That is true.
Yeah, and so I found though even with that, it was still a 4/6, and I thought it did well though. And in the last game, it was a 4-round event, best of ones. I ended up putting a Darksaber on Bosk, and that just so you guys know, also Darksaber on your unit is pretty good on your leader. Swing for 8 on turn 5, pretty good.
I think I definitely undervalued Darksaber in the beginning, like how good it could be, and I think people have been pushing it. And I mean, I think it also just fits really well with Sabine, so that also helps Saber out a good amount. Like just being able to like go out and be on Sabine, like that's just like on turn 4. Like how do you deal with that on turn 4? Like you don't, unless you just like happen to have like you're just sitting there ready to get Darksaber. Do you know?
No, yeah, that's it is the like thinking about it. It's how the metagame is going to adjust. If we're going to see a bunch of Darksaber Sabines, people will be running that Confiscate in their sideboard, or maybe start mainboarding it. So we'll have to see how the meta evolves with it. And I think you're going to see some Sabine lists with Darksaber, some Sabine lists without Darksaber. There'll also be how many people are running on their main board. Is it going to be 3? Is it going to be 2? Is it going to be 1? What's that number? So I'm interested to see how the dynamic of the meta evolves.
True. That's a good point.
For those that don't know, actually, Tyler, one of the designers at FFG, was talking about why Confiscate is aspectless. And he was talking about, I think it was the Lord of the Rings CCG where they made some kind of like enchantment or artifact removal a certain color in the game, color wheel, and he really said how frustrating that was and how much it made it so that it was hard to keep these artifacts or enchantments in check. I didn't play the Lord of the Rings game, but he was just talking. Because I remember when I saw Confiscate, I'm like, oh, isn't like upgrade removal supposed to be a red thing? And now everyone gets access to it for just one colorless aspect card. And yeah, that was his reasoning for it, was that he wanted everyone to have access to it. And we're going to see how important that'll be this set. So as we look, where are you going to be playing today and tomorrow?
Well, I'm going to one of my favorite stores that I travel to, because the closest one to my house. So I'm going to Gaia's Cradle in East Providence. And that's where I'm going today. And then I will be at Game On in Warwick on Sunday, also a store that I don't get to frequent enough because it's a little far away. It's like 30 minutes or so, and which I get, not for everyone that's not far away, but here in Mass, Rhode Island, like you can, every like 15 minutes there's like a game store. So like if it's like a half an hour away, it's generally speaking kind of far. But yeah, so that one is it's also over a bridge that had been broken down, and there's a lot of traffic. So like going over there was kind of difficult. It's better now, but there's still some traffic heading that direction. So Sundays aren't bad, but usually like during the week, there wouldn't be a chance for me to make it over there because of all the traffic.
That's fair. Well, I hope you have a good time. I want to give a special shout out to Richard and Philip, by the way, on YouTube, the moniker Mr. Malcor. Hope I got that right. So thank you for the wonderful conversation at my pre-release at Dreamer's Vault in Champlin. And I want to thank Dreamer's Vault in Champlin who put on a great pre-release. I'm going to be going to the Forge in Chaska, Minnesota today after work, so I'm looking forward to that. And hoping to get as good as pulls as I did yesterday on Friday, and hopefully I'm able to play as well. I was just thinking about in the Bosk deck, one thing that was nice was the ramp bounty with Bosk. A lot of the times, like when I had that in my hand on turn one, it was just a wait to see what my opponent does, put that on, start pinging them, and then hoping to get Bosk out a little bit earlier. So that was something that worked out well. There was 2 games that actually were of note. One of them, I had my opponent down to 23, and then he was able to play pre-Vistla, I think it was, and that really turned the tide of the game. He ended up capturing my Maul with that 5-cost green unit, which is a pretty strong unit, and I was kind of struggling to get that last bit of damage in. So it was a slow grind, and I eventually was able to play 2 space units to win, but after he totally swung the game momentum and took back control of the board. And then on the opposite end, there was a game where I was at 23 life, and I was able to slowly stop my opponent from going. Really using that Relentless Pursuit was a big help to get rid of their space unit and stop the bleeding, and then just kind of overwhelm them with all the cards that I had. So there definitely is, the game's not over until it's over. We got to make sure you finish the game off, and even if you're looking bad, you could keep fighting, and maybe you can get yourself out of a bad situation.
Absolutely. Well, I have a question for you. Sorry.
Yeah. No, go.
For you. What card, or if any, that you've played in your pre-release, you've got to build 2 now because of the kit from FFG.
Yeah.
What card have you played that has surprised you or been better than you expected, if any? I stumped them, folks.
Yeah. I want to say, the first thing that's coming to my mind is the 2/2 for 2 green ship that's a smuggle for 3. Okay. Now, that wasn't in my pool, but so I didn't play it per se, but I did see it played, and I just think it was really, really good. The fact that you can smuggle it out for 3 is kind of deceptively cheap, and going space is pretty good. It's always easy to forget about space, as Tyler would say. Eat your vegetables and put space in your deck. So that's the card I thought was, and it's at a common. So like I think when we're talking about limited, sealed or draft, like the common and uncommon rarity is really what you're going to be talking about. Because the odds you're going to open a Darksaber, the odds you're going to open a Maul, you can't really control for those things. But in 6 packs, you're probably going to open a good amount of commons.
That's fair.
You're going to open 45 commons.
Yeah. Well, I'm super excited to see what happens. Last night would have been probably my biggest pre-release had I been able to go. So I'm a little bummed about that. I always enjoy going to the bigger pre-releases, but I know I'll still have a bunch of fun at the next two, even though they'll be a bit smaller. How big was yours? I know you're in a good area where they usually get a lot of product. Decent.
Yeah.
How big was your pre-release there?
24 for the one. It wasn't the store I normally play. This is a store I do play at. It's probably my second most popular store, this one. The store that I normally play at, unfortunately, with my work situation, it's a little bit farther away, so I won't be going to that one this time, sadly, which is the Source in Roseville. If you're in Minnesota, Minneapolis area, Twin Cities, go check it out. Source, Roseville. And they have 32 people caps, which are awesome. I love those big events. I think the Chaska event is either 16 or 24 as well. So both decent size, though, with respect to the lack of product.
Yeah, agreed.
Any leaders you're looking forward to playing, or anything you're looking at avoiding?
I'm avoiding Finn with everything possible, and I excited to play with Cad Bane, not only because he was kind of our spoiler a little bit, like we had the cards that coordinated with Cad Bane, so I count him in that little trio, even though technically we didn't spoil him. But I want to play with Cad Bane and probably Han, Red Han. I'd like to play with him as well. I think he's pretty powerful. Like if I open Crate Dragon and Red Han, I'm just playing that because that just seems nuts and limited. It seems great and constructed too. So
I saw a lot of Bo-Katan, so I versed 2 Bo-Katans, and then I heard a lot of Cads were around, and I played against one Rey, so Rey was a little popular as well. Those were at least the big leaders in mine. One leader I would say that it depends on the pool you get, but don't underrate Hondo. And I know that sounds crazy because Hondo is a little... but I will say, if you can get the pool, especially with said 2/2 Space Boy that smuggles out for 3, then there's the 4-cost green-black guy that's a 2/3 for 3. Well, you have initiative, gets +2/+0. Smuggles out for 4. That can make some pretty interesting plays if you have a decent amount of those guys. So don't count Hondo out just yet. In limited.
So that's a good fair. I haven't played with Hondo yet, so I'm curious to see. But I probably won't play him at my first pre-release just because I hopefully will open up leaders that I deem better. But I see what you're saying. Where like that he can be pretty good, and if you get a bunch of smuggle cards that are good, like it makes sense to play him. Although I'm a little surprised. I expected us to get like one good competitive smuggle card that was like real good, and we didn't really get that. I'm not like disappointed by that by any means, but I guess I was just a little surprised because I guess I had expected like the major keywords to get at least like one card that's like obviously good for Premiere.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like we got that for the other couple. Like even though I don't think bounties are that great because they're a little slow and you need to like draw cards to make them better, like to be able to make up for the fact that you're losing a card.
If we want to just marry those two ideas together, a slow bounty might have been decent.
Which one?
A smuggle bounty, a bounty with smuggle, because then you're not as much losing that card.
Yeah, I think because it sets you out, I don't think they're going to combine keywords like that. I would imagine, but maybe I'm wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's just been like an interesting tidbit where like we've had good smuggle cards. You know what I mean? Like they've all been really solid. But I don't know if there's too many smuggle cards, and they probably were erring on the side of caution with smuggle because like it is a little bit of a broken mechanic and very powerful mechanic. So like if they make a card too good, and the card's just going to be nutty, and you're going to have to play that card,
Mm-hmm.
So like DJ, for example, I think is a very good smuggle card and close to that power level. But what they did to keep him from being too crazy was make his smuggle cost double yellow. So that's kind of, I think, where they're holding his power back is behind double yellow. If he was just yellow for smuggle, I think he would have been like a must play card. You have to put him in like a lot of decks. Like he's just been nuts, but because he's double yellow, it definitely hinders his ability to be smuggled, and that's where his power comes from, generally speaking.
Yeah. I don't know how much you've looked at the list and stuff. I know we've talked about some of the cards in our private messages, but in limited in particular, you're looking at commons and uncommons we've talked about. So what would you say the biggest common and uncommon that you're looking for are in the set?
That's a great. I think it really depends on the leaders that I open, of course.
Of course, yeah.
Because like obviously, if I open up like a Bo-Katan, then I definitely want some armor in my deck because that really pushes and really generates a lot of advantage for the Mandalorians. So that's definitely something I'd be looking forward to. You know, you have like Jabba's Rancor in Command Villainy, which is a card that I think will pretty much end a game pretty quick. So there's a lot of cards I think are very powerful. It just depends on the deck that I want to build. Because like I said earlier, a lot of the cards in this set definitely kind of like go with a sub theme in decks. So like it's this set seems like it's more about playing like the tribal stuff, where like last set was just playing powerful cards, but this one has more tribal themes that help each other. So typically when those happen in drafts, it's typically where you want to be, is you want to be playing some of the tribal stuff as best as possible.
I know that it's not. I like to normally play things on the edge or take the edgy takes. I'm going to maybe go a little bit more standard on my evaluation of the commons and uncommons. Yellow is a very popular color. I don't normally play yellow for a variety of reasons, but I will take 2 cunning cards. So for uncommon, I'm really liking Forlome. The fact to have a 4/4 ambush is really good. And I mean, obviously, it's even better if you also get a Zuckuss. You don't always control that in your pool. But if you can, I think Forlome's really great. 4/4 ambush for 4 is great. And then for commons, McClunky just does a lot. And I think with Forlome, Forlome is too relevant. You're talking about tribal synergy. Forlome is too relevant casual tags. You got Bounty Hunter and Underworld. And McClunky is also an Underworld. So even just the cards themselves are good, but they also have the benefit of having some helpful tags as well, which helps synergize in decks that you want those in.
Yeah, those all are amazing cards, and I think that the villain cunning cards generally feel quite powerful at the common and uncommon. Because you still have like Slaver's Freighter, which is like a 5-cost 4/5, which is like pretty reasonable for draft. And you have like Frozen Carbonite, which is also a very solid removal card for 3, which Frozen Carbonite is a cunning yellow upgrade that says attached to a non-leader unit, can't ready, and then when played exhaust attached unit. So just something to lock something down permanently for like the whole game. It's a bit more expensive than what we had last set, which was, what was a 2-cost one? Can't think of the name offhand.
Asteroid Sanctuary.
No, the villainy one. The one that locks it down for 2 turns and it can hit leaders.
No Good to Me Dead.
Yeah. So obviously this one can't hit leaders, which was a good thing for No Good to Me Dead. But I think for limited, that card is very, very good. That effect has always been good in other games as well for limited. So I think that card is like almost first pickable. So between that and Forlom and Zuckuss, you just have a lot of good commons, uncommons in that pairing. So it'll be interesting to see if yellow villainy runs over format again like it did last set a little bit, in my opinion. But there are some good things in other colors as well. Like I think blue has a lot of good stuff as well. So it'll be really interesting to kind of get my hands on it and start playing it. I can't wait to draft. I drafted. I'm going to self-claim that I have the most drafts for whatchamacallit there.
Barker Rebellion.
Barker Rebellion. Thank you. I am blanking this morning. Sorry, I haven't had my coffee yet. But so I self-claim that I had the most in-person drafts for Barker Rebellion because for the first month I drafted 3 times a week every week. It might have even been more than a month. So I drafted like well over 20 times. So I was very fortunate to have stores that say it's products for drafts, even when I went to PAX, I was fortunate enough to be asked to draft with some amazing people as well. I actually never got to tell a story on the podcast, so maybe we'll save that for a rainy day. But yeah, I was able to draft with a couple of the developers, so that was pretty rad. Because a person who had purchased a box the day before asked the developers if they wanted to draft, and they were trying to fill the pod, and I happened to be there that day, and they were like, "Hey, would you like to draft with them?" And I was like, "Yes, I would love to draft with them." So, long story short, that's how I got to draft with Danny and Mr. Zwern.
That's
So,
pretty great.
yep, it's an awesome story. Love it.
Yeah, and Limited is one of the best things about Star Wars Limited, in my opinion. As you're mentioning a Frozen Carbonite, I thought about, just a reminder for those, there are 5 cards in packs which are from Spark Rebellion. Now, they are all common, and so you don't have to worry about, like, oh, why are they reprinting cards? They mention that these cards are reprinted for Limited. So they're commons, they're all commons. They're not gonna, their value's irrelevant anyways. And they're just there so that way they don't, because if they reprint another card that's like it, then they have a second card in the pool for constructed that do very similar things, and then it basically means that you would run 6, quote unquote, of the similar card effect, and that makes constructed maybe potentially less balanced. So, like, the cards are the the Disabling Fang Fighter, which is a Mandalorian, so that's like one of the reasons in there, because it's some Mandalorian sub theme that can remove an upgrade, which is also really important in this set.
Probably insane in this set, I'd imagine.
Yeah, you got Cargo Juggernaut. You've got the 6-cost green 5/5 ambush overwhelm guy. You got Surprise Strike and Underworld Thug, who actually is kind of relevant in this set because a 2 for a 2/3 is a decent starter unit, and it's also an Underworld, so that kind of makes the Underworld theme go. So if you're opening cards, you're like, why is FFG reprinting these cards? We're in set 2. It's for Limited, and they're commons. So it's not like I don't think it's a big deal, at least.
Yeah, I mean, I actually appreciate that they did that, mostly because, like, I understand why they needed it for Limited, because it isn't, like, sometimes important effects to have in Limited. So I'm glad they thought about that and had that in consideration. But then also, yeah, it makes sense that they can't make a whole new one because, especially in the second set, you don't want to have someone have 6 copies of the same thing. Like, at some point, we might have similar effects. Like, you already kind of do. And, like, if you went red, yellow heroism, you could run like Heroic Sacrifice and Surprise Strike that are, like, very similar. But they're not exactly the same, obviously. So it's like, how do I want to run these things? Like, technically, in that deck, if you had another type of Surprise Strike, you could then run 9 of those effects if you really wanted to. And, like, at some point, like, you don't want to have too many of one effect. So I applaud them for making the hard choice where some people might not appreciate it, of reprinting specific cards, but I think it was the correct choice in this instance. And I know some people have had some, like, backlash on it, but I'm like, it's like 5 cards. I will say, however, it will suck to open up a hyperspace version of the old cards. So,
Yeah.
And I know you can, because I've seen people open that from these packs. So I wish that in the future, if they do reprint cards, they make it possible where they can't have them in hyperspace. I don't know if it's actually possible, but that is just a small critique there, if possible, to not have them allowable for hyperspace.
Yeah. I think a benefit or a way to kind of stop that is, like, not stop it. Yeah, I think I'm just okay with it happening at the common level because it's not going to affect your upshift rarity. It's just a common. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it is just a common, and, like, so it's not the end of the world. I agree, but, like, obviously, especially in the beginning, like, you're gonna want to open up the new hyperspace cards because, like, someone like myself who collects hyperspace already, I already have most of those cards multiple times over in hyperspace at this point, because I've drafted a ton and traded a ton. So, like, I have a lot of those. Like, opening up, like, when I get my boxes or whatever, when I get to open up those, like, I'm gonna be like, oh man, if I open up, like, the 6-cost 5/5 ambush boy, I have 5 of those already hyperspace. Like, I don't need more.
Yeah.
So, like, that's going to be a mild bummer because I'd rather just open up the new cards in hyperspace. That's what I'm looking for. So every time I get that, it's like just another, like, oh. So I don't know if there's a way, because I don't know obviously how the system prints or whatever. But, like, I hope that maybe in the future there is a possible way for us to get reprint cards not be in the hyperspace slot. Now, I get there's some people that might have them already, but like I feel like generally speaking, for the most part, people who want the hyperspace cards will have them. So it's like it's I don't know. I don't know where I was going with that, but it's just like I would like for them to try to have a way to make it maybe less popular. Even if like they can't not do it, just make those pop up in hyperspace less compared to others. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think just the nice thing about just not being a hyperspace boy is I don't have to worry about that. uh, but I will say that I know just before we get to the close, two things. One, Scanning Officer, really good card. Annoying when you have your smuggle cards down and you lose tempo of your resources being tapped. And number two, before we head out, I want to say Dunis had let us know that he did play in 2 pre-releases so far. He was 3-0 in one of them and 2-1 in the other one. And he got 2 legendaries, he said. He got a Crate Dragon and a Ray. So next week we'll have him on to talk about how his decks were built, what he played, and we can get more insight on that. But just in case anyone was curious, Dunis did pretty well.
Attaboy.
Anything you want to close today off with?
Nope. I hope everyone had a great time at their pre-releases this weekend, and get ready for release week next week. Opening up all those juicy packs. I'm super excited. Hope you all too. That's all I gotta say.
And this is just a reminder, this is a very interesting time. We are doubling our card pool right now. So we're not going to ever have kind of this moment again. I know it's kind of cliche to say, oh, this is the first time ever. Like the first set was the first time we played the game. But this one in particular is doubling the set. And so that's going to mean a pretty big shift in the game. So let us know in the comments how you did in your release. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time on Outmaneuver.